Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you're able to join us this evening. We have a presentation today that is covering the 3+2 programs that we offer here at the Bush School. This one is all inclusive, so it will include information about both the Master of Public Service and Master of International Affairs, which is a little bit different than the ones that we had hosted earlier in person about 2 weeks ago. So I put together some slides that you guys will be able to follow with us, but we're going to get started on time and then have an opportunity for our students to join us a little after 6 o'clock this afternoon. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We will open it up to some questions later in the session, particularly when the students are here, but there may be some opportunities as Matt and I speak that if you do have a question, just put it in the chat session. Or if there's a breathing pause, go ahead and unmute and ask that question out loud and we can try to address that. In particular, if it is something a little more general that you think will pertain to more than just your situation. We are also encouraging those that maybe have some specific issues that you're not sure about, that you will be able to come to us as a separate meeting one-on-one or Zoom session. And then also we're encouraging, of course, for you to meet with your undergrad advisors because they are the most informed on what your degree plan should look like. So having said that, let's talk a little bit about accelerating your graduate studies. I know many people have actually chosen to attend Texas A&M because they heard about these opportunities to do these accelerated options when they were interviewing with different schools. And so we have in place here the Master of Public Service and Administration, which partners with political science, economics, sociology, ag econ, wildlife and fishery sciences. And we also have in place a Master of International Affairs that ties with international studies and economics. So keep in mind, you can only attend the degree that relates to your area. So if someone comes in through econ, you have a choice between which degree program you want to get. We are often asked about, let's say, a political science major that says, I'm really interested in more on the international affairs side. Can I do a 5-year program with them? No, you will have to graduate, get your degree in hand, and then apply like the majority of our students do. And just come to us through the regular application process. And that is fine to do that. We admit a number of students doing it. As far as presentation today, so you're joining me, Catherine Meyer, Director of Admissions and Recruitment here. I've been here about 18, 19 years. Matt Upton is our Assistant Dean for Career and Student Services, and I'm going to have him jump on in a few minutes and really discuss what kind of career options are out there, because it's great to think about this program and how you can speed it up, but only if it fits your career plans. So we want to make sure that we cover some information on that early in this process so that you can see what kind of fit you have. Additionally, I do have 2 students who are joining us from the Master of Public Service and 2 more for International Affairs. They just so happen to be from the same departments, political science and international studies. But we do have students from other departments. There's just more of them in these areas, and so they typically volunteer. So the agenda of what I'm going to cover, hopefully if you had registered soon enough, I sent this agenda out late last week. If you didn't, you may not have received the agenda, but this is what we're covering. I'm going to start with what is the Bush School, the career and employment options covered by Matt. He's also going to cover student and school resources and how we support our students. We'll cover the curriculum, what those tracks and concentrations look like in the master's programs, a little bit of advice on undergrad reminders on what you need to look for on your hours, keeping your trajectory in the timeline you needed. We'll also talk about what you need to apply and how to be successful in that application. And then I'll pass it on to our students and we'll end about the last 30 minutes with them covering a number of different aspects and answering your questions. So I'm going to start with just a couple of slides of what is the Bush School of Government and Public Service. So know that we are the smallest school here at Texas A&M and we're a graduate school only. So we only have master's level students. There's no PhDs, no undergrads at this time. We opened in 1997, so we are about to hit our 25th anniversary next year. We have roughly 2,200 alumni in place. And then for this academic year, we enrolled roughly 82 MPSA students, about 83 MIA students. And of that, a handful of those are going to be the 5-year students, these 3+2. I believe this year we brought in around 12 to 14 5-year students for the MPSA, and we brought in 2 for the MIA. And I'll explain a little bit of how those numbers work out and why it was a lot lower on MIA this year. There are additional programs, which I'll cover in the next slide, but essentially we're preparing for our students for a number of career paths, but mainly nonprofits, international NGOs, federal government, state, local government. A lot of it's private industry, government contracting, and there's obviously a lot more than that. And Matt's going to cover some of that in a few minutes. But I just want to give you the bigger picture. We're going to talk about the Master of Public Service Administration and the Master of International Affairs, but we also offer a number of different programs. So again, if you see something that's of interest and maybe you want to get your degree first and then go to one of these other programs, that is fine. You don't have to stick with the 3+2 plan that maybe you're thinking about right now. You can sway off of that, get your degree, and go to a different kind of program. So I do want to mention that we do have a new program that is a joint program with public health. So students can come in with an MIA and a Master of Public Health. They spend a 1.5 years with public health first, and then they come into our program from the last 1.5 years. And then we also have a Master of International Policy that requires students to have 4 years of professional international experience. So this is not for the straight out from undergrad kind of student. We also have a number of online and possibly on-campus options with our certificates and executive MPSA. So you may or may not see some of these students in the classroom with you. Occasionally someone will jump on to an on-campus class through a certificate. But I've listed them there. And then we have opened a new DC location, if you hadn't seen that already. And that DC location is going to present some additional opportunities for our students as well as we grow. We just started the program this spring. So they began with a Master of International Policy for, again, those 4 years of experience. So they're looking for those that are working in the DC area and taking night classes. But one that's of interest to a lot of you for international affairs, if you're looking at the Intel area, then you can pursue a Master of National Security and Intelligence. That is also going to be offered just in the DC campus. It's similar to what we're doing here with our Master of International Affairs and Intel emphasis that a lot of you have heard of Jim Olson speaking. But it is an option that if you're graduating and maybe you want to head to DC straight out from here and get away from College Station, that you could apply to that program with your degree in hand. It will not be eligible for 3+2 though. And having said that, I'm going to pass this on to Matt Upton, who is joining us for our Career and Student Services. And Matt's going to cover the next few slides about career services and our student support resources. So giving it to you, Matt.
Thank you, Catherine. Well, howdy, everybody. Great to have you all online today and happy to present this information about our 3+2 students. I'll tell you, one of the things that I feel like a lot of our 3+2 students come in asking is, can I really do this? Can I make a transition from undergrad to graduate school? And then is this going to help me be successful in my career in the future? And the answer is an absolute yes. Our 3+2 students come in because you are well prepared, because academically you're a strong student. Our 3+2 students do very well in their time after the Bush School. And so a lot of people come in knowing a little bit about the public sector, a little bit about international affairs, public administration, but not a whole lot. And so there are a lot of times questions about what exactly can I do in these fields. And so the reason we have this slide here is to show you that there is a lot you can do. If you think of the federal government, or you think of state and local government and what they offer and the services that they provide to the communities or the constituents that they work with, they're going to be doing all of these things. They're going to be managing communications and public relations. They're going to be managing businesses and entrepreneurship, development, education. They're going to be concerned about the energy and environment, cost of those things. What does that look like? How do we provide services to our constituents? As I mentioned, human rights, law, Nonprofits and philanthropy play a huge role in that as well, as do science and technology and security and intelligence. So the reason that we point all of this out is for you to get a feel that it doesn't really matter what your interests are. If you want to work in the public space, there is a place for you from a career standpoint. So we'll look at the next slide and we'll talk about some of the places that our students have gone when they've graduated. So students in our International Affairs program, historically, a majority of the graduates of International Affairs go into work with the federal government. They may do that through an actual federal agency, or they may also do it through a government contractor. And so when we look at employment in the International Affairs program, anywhere from 40 to 70% of graduates end up probably working in the Washington, D.C. area, at least initially when they graduate. Doesn't mean you have to. There are more and more opportunities opening up in the state of Texas to continue doing work with either the federal government, or because Texas is a big state, in state government, major metropolitan areas like Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Austin. They're also going to have a number of opportunities. But those federal agencies that are pretty popular for our students include places like the Central Intelligence Agency or Defense Intelligence Agency, National Geospatial Intelligence, Naval Criminal Investigative Services, not the TV show, but the actual agency that does that work. U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, and you can see some of the other places that are hiring and that have hired our students. U.S. Government Accountability Office. While they have a major operation in Washington, D.C., they also have a main office. One of their hubs is in Dallas, and one of their strong teams in Dallas is the Defense Capabilities Team. And so we've had a number of our graduates from International Affairs and Public Administration go to work for U.S. Government Accountability Office up in the Dallas area. In the Public Service and Administration program, it's a little more diverse as far as the types of jobs that they go into. So in the Public Service and Administration program, the three primary areas that they're going to find work in are going to be the federal government, state and local government, and then nonprofit organizations. So you can see a listing of some of these places. We just try to give you a feel for the types of places that people have gone, some that are not listed on here. As far as other states go, we have a student that graduated last year, is actually Catherine's graduate assistant, who works for the state of Rhode Island now. You can see that there are people working here in Texas. If you're a native Texan and you want to stick around, there's plenty of opportunities for you, whether you're interested in city management and you want to work as a city manager or assistant city manager. We have graduates who are doing that work. In fact, we have one who's down in LaPorte, city manager of LaPorte. One of our former students used to be the city manager for for McKinney. He was an assistant city manager in Frisco before that. We've had a former student who was a city manager for the city of Commerce, Texas, over where A&M Commerce is. And so you'll see plenty of opportunities for you there. Nonprofit organizations run the gamut, everything from large nonprofit organizations like the American Cancer Society and St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital and Teach for America, to smaller organizations like the Greater Texas Foundation, which is located here in Bryan, and they work to provide access to education for underrepresented student populations. We've had a number of students who've been very successful and graduated and gone to work for Greater Texas Foundation. Some of them have stayed. We have one in particular who's been there since she graduated, and she's been there for over 10 years now, and she's a manager now, and I think she's probably like the number 2 or number 3 person at the foundation, has been very successful. And then in the private sector, you can see some of the employers. Some of these are going to be what I would call strict private sector employers, like Accenture, Bank of America, Deloitte Consulting, some of those types of places. But then there are going to be also some that are government contractors, like I mentioned earlier, like Booz Allen Hamilton. If you're familiar with the government contractor space or defense contracting, Booz Allen Hamilton is one of the major ones. If you're interested in international affairs, but you don't want to go to work for USAID, or you can't land a position at USAID, then places like Chemonics, that's another government contractor for international development, or other organizations like you saw in the nonprofit space, like Samaritan's Purse, that does international NGO work. So plenty of opportunities for you in these fields. If you're kind of wondering how our students do when they graduate, we want to share a little bit of information. We provide career advising and professional development for your lifetime. So you need to know that, yes, we're going to help you while you're a student here, but we're also going to continue offering career advising to you after you graduate, whether it's for a career transition, a career move, you just need a little bit of help, you need a networking contact, we're going to help you with those types of things. We do that by offering some general career workshops at the beginning of your first year that we ask all first year students to attend. We typically host 6 of those. A majority of those are in-person workshops. We're back to in-person workshops, but we do have some online content that supplements that. And so we continue to provide resources for you. And then you'll have some deliverables that you turn into us, like a resume and a LinkedIn profile that you've updated following the guidance that we give. And by doing that, what you have also done is you've also qualified for internship or language immersion funding. So our students are required to do an internship between their first and second year of graduate school, unless you have significant work experience. So very few of our 3+2 students have 3 or more years of work experience, unless you're coming back to us maybe as a veteran. And so it is something that you'll have to do between your first and second year. If you are in the International Affairs program, you can do either a language immersion or an internship. If you are in the Public Service and Administration program, you can do an internship because you don't have a language exam that you have to pass. But if you have completed the 6 workshops at the beginning of the year and your internship or immersion is unpaid, then you can apply for additional funding. So Catherine will talk to you about scholarship funding and how that would work for you as a student, but this is supplemental funding and it depends on where your internship is located. And our goal is to provide as much funding to as many of our students as possible. Then when you start looking at employment after you graduate, a lot of people want to know, okay, how successful are your students? Our employment rates are typically between 83 and 96% employed within 6 months of graduation. The reason we use that 6-month mark is because that's what we've agreed to with our other APSIA, which is the Association of Professional Schools of International Affairs, and NASPA, our network of public administration, public affairs programs. We've all agreed in career services to give at least a 6-month a snapshot of employment so that you can compare our program to other programs across the country. So we post at 6 months post-graduation. So we'll start wrapping that process up for the class of 2021 this month. And then our goal is to have those statistics posted by January when you all get back from the winter break. But you can see here, as I mentioned earlier, for the Public Service and Administration program, typically our top 3 employers are state and local, nonprofits, and NGOs. Last year, private sector and continuing education bumped up a little bit, but keep in mind that the 2020 numbers were right after COVID had hit. And our employment statistics were still very strong. You can pull up the exact numbers and get the exact percentage of those employed and those that responded, but typically we have between an 85 and a 90% response rate. So we're not just giving you a snapshot of people. This is a majority of the people who are coming through the program. And then you can see in international affairs, much fewer in state and local government and nonprofits, although state and local seems to be growing a little bit, as I mentioned earlier, but a big chunk there in the federal government and then government contractors. Private sector, again, was a little bit higher in 2020. I would imagine that's largely due to COVID. And then continuing education, that may mean law school or a PhD program. Every great once in a while, it also could mean an additional master's degree program, excuse me, but not always. And it's usually a PhD or a law program. The other thing that I like to point out at this point is you're probably thinking, okay, but if I spend money to get a master's degree, does it actually give me money in the end? And the answer to that question is yes, it does. So it does pay off to get a master's degree. And I'll give you some hard numbers that'll help you out with that. When we're looking at employment and we're looking at salary ranges for our graduate students in public and international affairs, one of the best places to look is the federal government, because their information is out there and you can find it very easily. Some private sector employers, you can't always find their information. But if you want to go and find more information, you can look at the federal, if you just Google federal pay scale, 2021 federal pay scale, you're going to pull up some websites from the Office of Personnel Management, or OPM. And you can click on that. And there's a general pay scale. And then there are pay scales based on the location of the job. So you can look in Dallas, you could look in Houston, you could look in Minneapolis, Minnesota, if you wanted to. You can also look at Washington, D.C. You'll have to scroll down to the bottom to do that. But students who graduate and go to work for the federal government with a bachelor's degree only typically start at what we call the GS7 level. And you're typically going to start at a GS7 step 1. There are 10 steps in each scale, in each level. And so that range is about $40,000. I think it was just under $40,000 a year, all the way up to just under $50,000 a year at a GS7 step 1 to step 10. On the other hand, if you finish with a master's degree, you qualify to start at a GS9 step 1. That's 2 levels higher than a GS7. And that salary range is $55,000 up to $62,000, $63,000, maybe even $64,000. I looked this morning and now I'm forgetting what the top number is, but it's about $12,000 to $15,000 more per year with a master's degree to go to work for the federal government. And then your locality pay, if you're in Washington, D.C., you get paid more on top of that than you would get paid, say, to work in Dallas, Fort Worth, just because it's more expensive to live in Washington, D.C. So it does pay off. And when Catherine talks about that, keep in mind that $12,000 to $15,000 pay raise that you get, in essence, from having a master's degree, put that in comparison to the amount per year that it's going to cost you to go to graduate school. And Catherine will share more about that here in just a little bit. So some of the other resources that we have available to you, we have a public service leadership program, and Holly Kasperbauer is our assistant director for that program. She provides teaching on leadership skills formally through courses and workshops. She offers Myers-Briggs type indicator assessment. She offers StrengthsFinder, and then she uses that information to help you understand a little bit more about yourself and how what you know about yourself then informs the teams that you work on. That's very helpful in graduate school because you're going to do a lot of teamwork. You're going to do some more teamwork during the summer in between your first and second year. So you're going to get to see how your strengths and your personality play into the work of the organization that you're working in. And then that's going to be really important for you when you get ready to go into your second year and you're in your capstone project. And so that capstone project is you working with the same people. If you're in public service and administration, for a full academic year. If you're in international affairs, that's for a full academic semester. You're going to work a lot of hours with them working for a real world client to solve a problem and give them a resource or give them something back, an answer to their questions that they're asking or that they're trying to solve and do research on. And so knowing who you are as a person and then knowing how that interacts with the people on your team is really helpful. We also have a director of the writing program, Cindy Razor. She works with you to provide, she has a writing course. It's a non-credit bearing writing course that you can take, and a number of our students do that to improve their writing skills. I don't think it's any secret that employers are looking for strong writing skills. She'll also work with you to help you create an e-portfolio of your writing materials. Even if you're interested in the national security space, she can teach you how to do that, and she'll show you how to do that. And you don't have to publish that e-portfolio, but you can give a private link to potential employers so they can see some of your sample writing, and that's going to be really important in the intelligence field. I should have mentioned my 2 staff members in career services. In addition to the career workshops, we also work with you individually. Marilyn Santiesteban is our assistant director for career programming. She does those required career workshops and other career workshops. And then Michael Cochran is our assistant director for employer relations. And he brings in employers and hosts information sessions from employers who are looking to hire our students for both internships and full-time opportunities. He also manages our career management system where we post job and internships for you to view and then apply to. You may be familiar with a number of the speakers if you've ever been over in the Allen Building. In addition to the employers that we bring in, you've probably seen posters around the Allen Building showing the faculty or alumni or other speakers that are coming in and continue to come into the Bush School. And I expect that we'll see more and more of those in person as the spring semester comes upon us, as long as things continue to level off the way they have been. And then there are international travel opportunities, study abroad trips, and those are offered to students in both departments. They're typically offered through the International Affairs program, but there are opportunities for you to participate in that if you're in the Public Administration program. I don't think that a decision has been made to offer that this year, but my guess is that those will start back up next year again if things continue to improve with regard to the pandemic. And then there are some opportunities. There's at least one opportunity that we hope to launch and kick back off again next year, where you would spend your summer internship spending 2 weeks in classes at Swansea University in Wales. And then you would spend 4 weeks in an internship either with the Welsh General Assembly in Cardiff, Wales, or with the Parliament in London. And then you'll come back and finish 2 more weeks of classes at Swansea University. You'll get academic credit for it, but it also counts as your internship during the summer. And then for those of you in the International Affairs program, we offer a number of resources to help you with your language support. I should say that some of these resources, or a number of them, are provided to public administration students as well. We do give first come, first serve to our International Affairs program students because they're required to pass a language exam. You have to pass the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages oral exam at an intermediate low with your spoken language, with the language that you choose. We have free Rosetta Stone access, online Rosetta Stone access, and then we also have in-person language groups where we typically hire either a native speaker or a fluent speaker, and they will come and tutor you on a weekly basis. And so that's a great opportunity. And those language groups are open to students in the Public Service and Administration program as well if you want to enhance your language skills. Everything from Spanish, French, German, Arabic, Farsi, Mandarin, Chinese, Korean. Those are just a few that come to mind off the top of my head. And then there are also opportunities for getting involved as a student. So we believe that being in college, a great way to get involved and to give back to your community is to be involved in some of the service organizations that we have inside the school. But you're also coming from A&M as undergrad, so we expect that many of you are probably already actively engaged actively engaged in the community already or in the university activities. And so we encourage you to continue that or to find a place in our public service organization or our Bush School Student Government Association, Foreign Language and Culture Society, which helps us host those language groups I just spoke about. I just saw a question come up. Yes, everyone, both departments can participate in the Swansea University program. We also have the Alexander Hamilton Society, which is actually open to all students at Texas A&M, but has historically been held at the Bush School, and the leadership has come from the Bush School. A group called European Horizons focused on EU issues, and then we have our Bush School ambassadors. They serve as hosts for all of our speakers and special guests and VIPs who come through the school. And then we have a number of student-driven career interest groups, including one in local government, nonprofit organizations, cybersecurity, international development. And again, those are just some of the ones that come to mind off the top of my head. I think that's the end of my slides. So the last thing that I'll say now is, if you have more questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm in the same office suite as Catherine is, up on the second floor of the Allen Building. If you get to the top of the stairs on the second floor, look to your left, you'll see a big picture of President Bush with his Bush School boots on. That's our suite right there. So come on in there. Feel free to let me know if you have questions or want to meet with me. You can always email me. If you do, just let me know that you attended this information session, so I already know what information you have, but I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. With that, Catherine, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Matt. And I'm going to take about 10 to 15 minutes to cover some of the other aspects of the academics, what your classes might look like, your degree plan, building this together, and then we'll cover the application and funding. So we'll start with the academic options and talk to you about the curriculum. So remembering that a 3+2 student looks the same as every other student that we admit, who might already have a number of years of experience and so forth. The only thing you're lacking is the experience they may be bringing in. So you're still doing 48 credit hours of graduate level coursework. You're still doing tracks and concentrations that you get to develop based off your interests. You will still do an internship. Or if you're in the MIA, you have a choice of immersive language study, if you choose to do that. You're going to be doing that client-based capstone consulting project. So you're gaining even more real-world experience that you can talk about during your interviews for jobs. And then for the MIA, the passing that foreign language exam. So the curriculum itself, you've got to find a match in what you're wanting to do. And I'm going to cover that on the next few slides with what the MPSA offers in their tracks and concentrations and what the MIA offers. But I will say that we have had students who came in and applied to this 3+2 program and they decided it wasn't for them. This is a tremendous amount of work and it is difficult work. And we're not trying to hide that from students. You have to be ready for grad school. And you're doing that in your senior year. So sometimes people are coming to us at 20, 21 years old, and your classmates are 28, 30, whatever, and they're feeling a little overwhelmed with that. And so you have to have the confidence and you have to have the skills to read a lot, write well, and be able to ask for help when you need it. And so we're just looking for the right kind of students. But if you decide that you start the program and it's not for you, you have to finish out the semester, and then any of the classes that you had taken can still be counted for your undergrad, and you just continue on in the undergrad and graduate as normal. If you do complete the master's degree along with your undergrad, then you're going to earn both degrees upon completion of your second year at the Bush School, but you're only going to walk for your Bush School graduation. You do not walk two different graduations based off your poli-sci or ag-econ, which might save you a whole lot of sitting there and watching everyone else from your large department graduate. So it's not a bad thing. So as far as the Master of Public Service Administration goes, and we talked about which departments those were earlier, it's the majority of people who are here on this session today. You have a choice between tracks and concentrations. Now, a track is required. You have to choose between public management, public policy analysis, and nonprofit management. If you are coming from econ, you are already placed in public policy analysis because the agreement with that department tells you which concentration you're doing, your track, sorry. So PPA is what you'll have to do. But that doesn't mean that you're locked out of other tracks. You can still take courses in public management or nonprofit. You're just doing it now as part of your electives. And that could work very easily. If you want to take concentrations because something here interests you, or because you've heard other students who developed certain specialty areas, then you can do that. And it's based off you pulling together a number of different concentrations and taking the certain classes that are listed under it. And there's a lot of this information on the website. You just go under the academic section, click on MPSA, go to concentrations, and it'll list about 10 to 20 different courses that support each one of these areas. And again, it's elective. So sometimes people will say, well, I want to study public policy analysis, and I specifically want to focus on education issues. And so they can do that. And those classes are going to be a mixture of probably both our classes and classes at other departments. Are you limited to one concentration? No, you could possibly do more than that, but you're going to have to pay attention again to how you're working your degree plan, because some classes aren't offered in the right semesters that you need. So it gets pushed back, so you don't meet that requirement. So you just have to play with that with your undergrad advisors. So as far as the Master of Public Service Administration goes, you have a wide range of selection, and then they also tell you individually designed concentrations, because sometimes people want to do an area that's not listed here. And so transportation issues, we've had housing issues, we've had people who want to focus on more of the social, I don't know, social something or another, political communications. So you can put together what you want, but you will work with your faculty advisor, which you're assigned when you start school here, in putting together that degree plan and just making sure that you're on track to graduate with the right kinds of classes. As far as the Master of International Affairs goes, you are also required of a track. If you're coming in from international studies, then you have a choice between the two, but most of you are going to do national security and diplomacy because you're coming from a security and diplomacy kind of background. If you're coming in from econ, you have to do the international development and economic policy. So you're tied to that track. Does that lock you out of taking NSD, national security and diplomacy classes? No, because only one of your two concentrations that's listed here has to be tied to your track. So as an econ student, let's say that you have to come in under IDEP for a track. You need to choose one of those areas that's in that teal color, and then your second one can be any of them. So you can do a balance between maybe international NGOs and American diplomacy and foreign policy. And you guys get to mix and choose those. So in order to complete your concentration, you have to do at least 3 classes in it. So again, on the website, there's 10 to 20 different classes, probably more like 10 to 15, that you're choosing from to support that area of interest. And so some students have even squeezed in a 3rd concentration if you can make that happen. And that's just working with your department and with your faculty advisor. So lots of flexibility that you can have a class of 90 students in the MIA and no 2 students look exactly the same because you're putting together your track and your concentration interest and depending on the classes that support it. And it's a wide range of choices, including other classes at Texas A&M. I know that in American diplomacy, there's been a very popular Mays business class that's in negotiations that students will often take. And so you have that flexibility. So just reminding you that this is a premier education, you're tailoring your courses to your interest by building on those core tracks and concentration classes, and you can tailor that with other departments here at A&M. So just to highlight a little bit about our mix here, we have a really good seasoned practitioners, people who've been in the field, along with the heavy research. So the International Affairs Department has a former CIA Chief of Counterintelligence, that's a picture of Jim Olson right underneath there, who does a lot of guest speaking on campus. You also have an administrator of USAID, you have an ambassador for the US Foreign Service, you've got a RAND Corp analyst, a UN Development Project Manager, and other top lecturers and researchers for all these different regional fields. So we just began Latin America, for instance, and we're hiring new faculty for that area. We also have wonderful faculty in the international economics and development who do a lot of really interesting work with their capstones in traveling sometimes to foreign countries and working with just refugee issues, all kinds of things, international NGO work. The Public Service and Affairs and Administration Department also has a number of research and practitioners who run it from nonprofit leadership, public and private organization, Texas Education and Finance, and lots more. Just if you go to the website, there's a section there on faculty directory and you can read their bios. But we're interacting in a small school environment. So we're enrolling about 80 to right now 90 students is per cohort, as I showed you from the beginning. So an MPSA class is going to probably be between 80 and 90 students. And of those, we're keeping an eye on how many 5-year students, 3+ students, we want to be part of that. Do we want to have 35-year students? No, because I don't want to have that many students in the classroom out of a class of 90. So they're going to limit that enrollment to somewhere close to 10 on the MPSA side. This year we went over a little bit. We ended up with, like I said, 12 to 14 of them because we pulled some students off wait list because the COVID was still affecting some of our enrollment. People from our international numbers is usually around 20%. And we were at 10% this year. So we made up for that by pulling some students off of the wait list. There's faculty to student ratio somewhere between 1 to 9, 1 to 10. So it is a very promising number of getting attention, but also means you can't hide. You better come to class prepared. You better meet with your professors and get help when needed, because it's not a matter of sinking. You've got to be able to swim, and your classmates here will help you with that. But again, you have to be mature enough to ask for help when you need it. And the average class size is about 16. Most of our classes top off at 20. This is a boardroom style look to it for most of them. So you're sitting around a large table and it's discussion. So they can't have 50 students in a class. Most top out at 20. Sometimes they'll force in a few more and have maybe 23 to 25, but most aren't going to do that. So focusing on a couple of undergrad reminders. When you come into our program, it's usually somewhere between 102 to 104 hours of what you needed to have already done by the time you come to us, because most of you are on degree plans of 120 hours and only 18 credit hours of our classes can count towards your undergrad. But we're noticing more and more students are coming in with more than 104, and it makes us take a step back and go work with your undergrad advisor and make sure this is right. And part of that issue is because some of you are accepting your courses that you did in high school for AP credits and that you didn't need them. And so you have more hours than you're actually using. And so it's throwing us off because you looks like you're ready to graduate. And then we go, do you still have enough hours to make 18 hours work? And you don't have to have 18 hours to double credit, but you need to have enough to work it, or you just need to graduate and get your degree in hand first. Don't try to slow your program down or speed it up to the point you're not doing well in classes to make this program work. We only start in the fall. You have to have a 3.2 and above for a GPA for most of our departments. If you're an INTS, you have to have a 3.5. And you have to have all those prerequisites done because there's no time to take care of any of your undergrad classes once you're enrolled with us. A full-time enrollment at the graduate level is 9 hours. Our students do 12 hours to get through a 48 credit hour program. So you don't have time to slide in another 3-hour undergrad class on top of it, or you're going to suffer, because that's asking a lot of anyone to do 15 credit hours in a semester. It's not the same as undergrad. And then you're going to be working with your undergrad advisors throughout it. So many times you ask us questions, sometimes I push it back and say, you're going to have to ask your undergrad advisor. I don't work degree plans, neither Ashley or myself do. So just keep that in mind. You better find a good advisor in your department to work with. Students are coming to us as a U4. So you're still a senior undergrad 4th year during your first year at the Bush School. So you're paying undergrad payment prices. When you're changed to us in the middle of your 1st and 2nd year, you're changed to a G7, which is a graduate, technically 7th year. I don't know, 6th, 5th, whatever it is, but it's called a G7. And so master students, once you complete 120 hours, which is usually in the fall, you're converted over and you're now paying our prices. So that affects somewhat of your funding. And we're going to talk about that part next. But one thing I want to mention is that financial aid is impacted a little bit because of the way we count hours. If you are on federal financial aid, typically that means Pell Grants, federal loans, doesn't always affect somebody who's just on a regular scholarship. In year 1, remember, we only count 18 hours, double counting from us to undergrad. And when you guys start with us that fall semester, 12 hours works, you're good, you're full time. But your 2nd semester, 18 minus 12 means there's 6 hours left over. So 6 hours is counting towards your federal financial aid, which means you're now part-time. So you don't qualify for Pell Grant and you don't qualify for some of the federal loans. So you need to work with the financial aid office and be careful on how all this works. Or we may have to figure out a way to maybe count 9 hours in one semester and 9 hours in the other. But this is an undergrad thing. I don't know that our staff really works with this much. So go to financial aid and talk to it. If you're just getting state and institutional financial aid and scholarships, none of this is impacted. It's only for federal financial aid that it matters, because everyone else, it works as normal. You're considered full-time at 9 to 12 hours, and that's what you're registered for, so you're good. So as far as admissions app, when to apply, you're typically applying somewhere around the 65 to 80 hour mark. And I can't tell you exactly what, because everyone looks different. Reminder that we only accept for fall enrollment. So you've got to watch your timing for this program. You have to have all those prerequisites done by the time you come to us. When you're ready to apply, you need to go to our website, and there's a section called admissions, and there's a section specifically for 5-year students, and it'll tell you what you need. And it's a 3+2 internal application. It's on our website. You just fill it out. It is not the GradCast application. That's what everyone else does, but you're still U4. So as an undergrad, you can't complete that GradCast or you throw the system off. We need a resume, a personal statement. If you're applying for the international affairs, we need an international experience essay. We need transcripts, which you can upload unofficial, send those to us. That's for any 4-year college. So if you did some of your work at a community college, we don't need it. It's already on your A&M transcript. Recommendations, we're going to need 3 of them. And there's a form on the website that will have to be filled out by your recommender along with a support letter. And those are emailed back to us and put into your file. GRE scores are optional because all of you have to have a 3.2 or above. And the only one that requires it is MIA if you're below a 3.2. So it's optional. Now, having said that, if you're a good test taker, take the test because it's going to benefit you possibly in financial aid. Faculty always like numbers. So it can't hurt you because if you do take the test and don't like your score, you email Ashley and myself and you say, can you pull that from my record? And we'll say yes, because we want you to put your best foot forward as well. And proof of English proficiency is only for international applicants. I don't know that we would have any for the 5-year programs because you guys would qualify from the 4 years of being here at Texas A&M. So last few things, December 15th is a priority deadline. January 12th is the final. Now, will we open the application or keep it open past January 12th? Maybe, but we won't know that until we see how the applications come in. And that's part of that decision on how competitive we're going to be that year. We review applications in January. We then invite students to interview in late January, and we set those interviews through the month of February. So February 11th and 12th is our interview conference we hold here on campus. That one's for the MPSA, the MIA is on February 18th and 19th. That's a half day Friday, all day Saturday. And it's a round robin event to get to meet our faculty in person. You get to meet our current students, our alumni, do panels with them. It's a great interactive session that if you can be a part of, do it. You get a decision by the first part of March. Usually by about March 10th, we'll send out offers. And in that offer, it'll tell you how much funding you get in year 1 and what it will be for year 2, because it's often 2 different things. And I'll explain that on the next slide. You have until April 15th to tell us if you accept that offer. And then we basically say, okay, we didn't hear from you. I guess you're not interested. And we go to the next person. So for financial aid, we're looking at competitive enrollment. So this year's class in PSA and MIA were both at a 3.56 GPA average. The GRE was at a 306 and a 308, depending on which department. So that merit consideration, not only with the faculty reviewing the files, but then taking into comments that they wrote down based on their interview with you. And you're assigned 2 different faculty or a faculty and a staff member. And hopefully one of them is tied to your area of interest, because I try really hard to make those matches, because I want you talking to someone that you'll be taking classes with and vice versa. Now, financial aid, every one of our MPSA and MIA students is going to receive some level of scholarship. That's just an automatic. But because you guys are 5-year students and you're still U4, you're only going to get $1,000 from us in year 1, because we're hoping you still have something in your senior year you can use from undergrad. But by year 2, our funding will kick in. And so we would have told you in your offer letter, great, you've been admitted, here's $1,000 in year 1, and in your second year, you're going to get $5,000. And so then it'll be split half between the fall and the spring semesters. Or some of our students never see that funding because instead they compete for GA positions and become a grad assistant. And if you're a grad assistant, you're either working for faculty or for staff, and you get closer to $14,000. So you can't do both. It's one or the other. But you can, keep that Bush School Award in your back pocket, apply for that GA position. If you don't get one, then you just keep your Bush School scholarship. If you have connections elsewhere on campus and you can get a GA position or a TA position or an RA somewhere on campus, that does not affect your Bush School scholarship. So we've had people who've worked as a GA in another department, maybe working for International Student Services or writing, and they're still getting their Bush School 10,000, 5,000, whatever it is, because you're not double dipping from our funding. So I can explain that if you have questions about it later. But you can also apply for those internship funding that Matt talked about. If you get an unpaid internship, then you can qualify some additional funding to help you. And that has nothing to do with our Bush School scholarships. That's an additional opportunity. And overall, what we cost is about $13,400 per year. And even students who come in are undergrads here at Texas A&M, you will qualify for Texas rates because we will ensure that you do. So $13,400 is what we cost before the scholarship kicks in. So if you're getting a $5,000 scholarship, you're looking at about an $8,400 cost, which makes this very affordable. And some of our 5-year students are top of the top, and they may be getting $10,000 or $15,000 per year. So it just depends on where you hit in that merit. So let me see if there's any questions really quick before I move on. How many students applied for the MIA program for fall of 21? I want to say there were close to 15 to 16 students for the last couple of years for the international affairs. A year ago, we admitted 9 of them. And then the faculty came back and says, ooh, that was too many. No. And this year we kind of put the foot down and faculty just wouldn't rank them higher to get the interviews. We interviewed 5 and admitted 2. So the MIA had the toughest, we had the most applicants with the most experience that we've ever had before. And because of that surge, they could be pickier, so they were. Typically, I want to say that MIA will bring in closer to 5 to 6. This year, it just was tougher because they could. MPSA usually has between 15 to 20 applicants, and they're usually about half of that. They'll admit about 10 of them on average. So is that GPA cumulative GPA or whatever? The GPA that we're listing here is cumulative. We only count Texas A&M GPA. That's just how most schools count it. So if you're transferring in blend credits, whatever, it doesn't matter. They're there, they're transfer, but we only count the Texas A&M, and that's what you got to use. If you have less than 18 hours saved, that is okay. We can take fewer than that. You just want to try to maximize your cost effectiveness, but it is okay. And what year do you apply for the 3+2 program? In your junior year. Sometime between that 65 to 80 something hours is typical. And the timeline that I was showing you was for this year, but it's typical for most years. So in the year's future, we open the application in August and our priority is in December and our final is in January. So you're going to work on that same timeline. Now, having said that, I want to use this last 20 to 25 minutes letting students talk. So I'm going to leave some of this information up, but students, I'm going to pass it on to you guys from Addison and Anna. You guys just introduce yourself and let's start with the MPSA, and then you'll pass it over to the MIA. And then I'm going to leave some of the topics here, and then you guys can continue to put in some chat questions. And if they call for it, you can unmute and ask the questions. So Addison, why don't you start off for me?
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Addison Walker. I'm an MPSA student, as Catherine said, and then my track is policy analysis, and my concentration is in Homeland Security and National Defense.
Hi everyone, my name is Anna. I'm also in the MPSA program. I'm a second year. I'm on the public policy analysis track, and I'm doing 2 concentrations. I'm doing education policy, and I'm also doing Homeland Security and National Defense.
Hi, my name is Ariela Mendoza. I'm an MIA candidate, and my track is International Development and Economic Policy. I have concentrations in conflict and development, as well as international economic development.
Hey all, my name is Will Watson. I'm MIA doing NSD, so national security, whatever. Then I have tracks in Intel, grand strategy, and defense something. I accidentally tripped my way into a third track. It happens. Or concentration, not track. Words are hard.
Struggle. So let's start with the first question. Let's just go with a little bit of the differences between undergrad and grad school. And I don't necessarily need everyone to respond to this. So let's have one MPSA, just whoever speaks up first, and then we'll do the same thing for the MIA and kind of switch off on these questions.
Okay, I guess I can take
Yeah, either one. Anna, you're good.
Okay, so I guess the biggest difference is definitely when it comes to the schoolwork. Undergrad is a lot of, it's not as much writing, and it's definitely more multiple choice, more exams, stuff like that. I would say 90% of the work I do at the Bush School is either group projects or papers. So writing is huge, working with other people is huge. Definitely more readings that are given, stuff like that. You just have to learn. I mean, I had to learn that I couldn't study in grad school like I did in undergrad. You can't read every single thing and take super diligent notes. You just don't have time for that, especially if you want to be involved outside of the classroom, which I highly recommend if you want internships or have a job. It's just not feasible. And I feel like COVID made that harder for us, is because it was hard for us to like work with each other and say, hey, you do these readings, I'll do this. So I think that'll be an easier transition for y'all because you'll be in the classroom together. But I'd say that those were the biggest differences for sure.
If it's okay, I'd like to take this one from the IA side. Look, there's a reason why you have to have a 3.7 to get in for INTS. It's because, oh, she's shaking her head. Am I wrong with that info?
It's 3.5.
Okay, 3.5. It's higher though, right? Like I got that. Okay, let's be real, but you probably do need a higher GPA to be considered. That's because I have the GPR distribution of classes pulled up. There's not a 400 level INTS class that has below a 50% of the class getting an A. That's life. Grad school's harder. It's more of a challenge, and it should be. If it's not more of a challenge, you're doing something wrong.
Well said.
I want to take like the personal side, like outside of the classroom experience of this. Like undergrad and grad school are different, especially if you're coming in as a 3+2 student. Know that like when all of your friends are doing their fun senior year activities, you're doing grad school. It looks different. That's a hard adjustment, knowing that like your friends are they may be driving to Cyprus on a Wednesday night to go get Waffle House at 10 o'clock at night. You may not be doing that. So just note there's also like a difference in life and work balance there, that you kind of have to adjust to, knowing that like your time at school isn't done and you decided to add another year to it, and you're not winding down anytime soon. And the Bush School is not going to wind down for you thinking that you're in your senior year. So I would say like that's different very much from undergrad to grad school. And just know that you're going to be like studying more. If you're a student who could just kind of pass by without doing your readings or doing your homework 10 minutes before class started, or just like scanning over class notes before an exam, that won't cut it at the Bush School. It's definitely a lot more difficult and it's a lot more challenging, but I would definitely say like life and like the way, like I think social life just looks different grad school versus undergrad.
In regards to the classroom experience, keep in mind that you're only going to meet once a week and it's for 3 hours. So there's a good chance you're going to get assigned more than 300 pages of reading for each class because you only meet once a week. So time management is a big part, and being able to focus for 3 hours is a big thing because you're going to need to be engaged the whole time. The professors expect you to pay attention and be able to discuss a lot of the courses. It's not like a lecture and PowerPoint like it is in undergrad. Everyone's discussing the readings and analyzing them. So that's a major difference between undergrad and grad school in regards to what you're doing in the classroom.
If I could chime in on that point, it's also a different cut of the crop. With undergrad, you have the people in the back who aren't doing anything. With grad school and a lot of my classes, the people in the back are actually current military advisors who are sitting in to learn. It's a different environment. As as a joint degree, I mean, I have the least experience in a classroom out of everyone. So I definitely need to be one of the smarter academic people to compensate for that. I don't have 8 years of life experience in the military to pull from. I have 0. And so instead, I need to get the readings done as best as I can while managing everything else. And also form a reading group. Don't be that one person who is sweating it up till 11 p.m. every night, then wakes up at 6. Like, that's just bad for your mental health. At the grad school level, you should also have been able to take care of your mental health.
So I was going to ask before we go to our topics here, if there is anyone who has a question and wants to unmute or raise your hand or whatever format we want to do here, or put it in the chat question. Let's see what's on your mind. And we can always come back to this list of questions that's on the slideshow. Anybody have anything they want to ask?
I do have a question. I'm sorry, this is totally off topic, but are we going to be able to access the recording of this Zoom after it's over? Because this is really good insight, but I'm writing very fast and I still can't get it all down.
Yes, I will have it transcripted, which it's doing right now, but my GA will go over it and we'll post it to the website and I will send it out to everyone who's registered. So yes.
God bless. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions?
Like, what drew y'all personally to the Bush School in this program?
Whoever wants to answer. Go ahead, Will.
For me, it was international studies was a little bit boring. I came in with a lot of AP hours and I was set to finish in 2 years, but honestly, I wanted a 4-year experience. So the way I set it up, and I talked to my advisors, and first weekend, I came to Bush School advisors. This is my first week of undergrad, and said, look, here's what I want to do. So we set it up. And my plan B was I accepted 0 of my AP hours. So that way, if I didn't get into Bush, to do a double major. It's just, you have to want to challenge yourself here. Like, wanting to get by isn't enough. I'm here because I like learning, and because I like being able to be the smartest person in a room. I'm one of the more arrogant ones at Bush, that's a fact, but it also gets me places.
I like your honesty.
I can go too. Something that attracted me to the Bush School is that in undergrad, I really felt like I was just learning theory. And sometimes not even theory, I was just learning how to memorize something and then write and then answer test questions. The Bush School really teaches you how to be an active participant in the workforce when you graduate. They are setting you up to create change, to be on that front line, to be doing things, not just graduate and go, oh, I don't actually know what any part of my undergrad degree is applicable now in my job. And that's not at all at the Bush School. My internship this summer, I used so much that I learned in my 2 semesters of the Bush School at my internship. And I'll be honest, being able to fast track and do 2 degrees, get my master's and my undergrad in 4 years, that was a big draw to me. I was like, that's less student debt. And I felt like I had more to offer when I graduated than I ever would have if I had just graduated undergrad and tried to go into the workforce.
Well said. I see there's 2 chat questions. So hold on, Klein, let me get you a second. So one of the questions was, I'm considering double majoring in sociology and psychology. Would that impact my ability to apply? Did any of you 4 have double majors? I'm going to have to put this back with undergrad advising. I don't know. I know you just have to be within sociology, but I don't know how it impacts having a second major. So that is an undergrad question, I'm afraid. I don't know. I'm sure we've had students who've done it, I think. But I just, year to year, I forget what it looks like. And then there was another one, what are some study or time management tips? So we're going to come back to that after Klein asks his. So think about some of the things that you guys have put into play. I can tell you right now, students for sure have to have a calendar and keep up with it, whether it's an online or one you carry around, but they pencil in everything because there's just a lot going on and you're going to miss it if you don't. Will, I know you're unique, but we'll come back to that in a second. So Klein, what is your question? Oh, you're muted. Or at least I can't hear you.
Hello.
There it is.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you so much. So do y'all have any recommendations as to how to get recommendations from college professors?
So for me, I went to the professors who I knew could speak to my ability to perform in the classroom. So I chose professors who I had to write papers for and who I participated a lot in class. Really, the idea of the recommendation letters, you want someone who can speak to more specifics about what you can do. So you want to go to those professors you've gone to office hours a lot and formed like personal relationships with. Those are the people I would go to, as opposed to someone who you're in a classroom with 200 people and they don't know you super well. So that's the advice I would give.
One thing with that, what I did was I picked a professor who knew me well, a professor who I ran the organization he was a part of, and then one of my past employers. The reason why I did that is because I wanted to show academic strength, leadership ability, and then the fact that I can show up to work. Where it's, hey, I haven't been at work, but I can. Well, I'm being real. I'm being honest. Like okay, let me put it into the nice version here. Pick professors that can go ahead and showcase one of your particular abilities. I would prefer, I think that's a better approach than trying to pick the one professor or two professors who can showcase all of your abilities.
I would also say finding someone who can write to your character. The Bush School is a public service, like we put an emphasis on public service. And so, that's the kind of classmates that we want, are people who have quality character and who are willing to serve and like put their best foot forward always. So I would definitely find someone too who can like, who knows your character well and can write about it.
Agreed. Okay, so let's jump to that next question that I read earlier. What are some time management tips for one or two of you?
I would say treat your week like it's a 8 to 5 job. It's definitely, I think, harder your first semester to try and keep your time that way, because you're like, oh, I haven't finished yet. I need to work on this. I need to do this. But get up at 8 o'clock and work. Go to class during that time, work on your homework during that time, but give yourself like a hard stop at the end of the day. Because one, you want to maintain like your mental health. It's really easy, especially your first year of grad school, to just let your health and your mental health go away. Find time to go work out, find time to set aside to go hang out with friends, go do things for yourself that aren't homework related, but also make sure that you're putting in that time. Being able to have that like 8 to 5 hard stop, and not saying that you'll always ascribe to that, but like that is something that's helped me, is making sure that like, oh, on Monday through Thursday, I've got this is what's going on, but making sure that I have those hours set aside to work on schoolwork.
I believe this was like a pattern that I learned from the career services in undergrad that's on main campus. But there's like an outline for like a 5-day like study and time management that I thought was a really good idea, because planning out 5 days in advance is much better than staying up and pulling like an all-nighter the night before, because I can definitely say those are rough. So I would recommend at least starting 5 or like 3 days in advance for everything. Like it's good to write it out. I like to do daily, like what do I need to do for the day, as well as having like a weekly planner.
Anybody else on that one before I move to the next question? We good? Okay, so there was another question asking for basically a freshman of what do you think made you stand out on your application in being involved? And Will, I don't know if this was part of your answer that you wrote out, getting involved in your organizations, and Keith, do you want to just talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I can. I was actually going to ask you the same thing. What made my application stand out? Because I'm not sure. But one, I kept my GPA up. It was classes come first, everything else comes second. You got to be on top of the ball there. I know I had 1B my undergrad, and I still, it haunts me. but more than that, it's the summer between my freshman and sophomore year, I had applied to about 200 different internships and I got 0 of them. So what I did is I found a job with my local city government, just working as a camp counselor, Parks and Rec, just because I did want to give back to my city. That's one that honestly, I really enjoy doing that. I'm glad I did it. But 2, it also looks really good on a resume for a school of, hey, I know I'm 19 applying here. When I was 18, here's what I did. And so it's, you do what you can. I forget what the phrase is, but it's like, often it doesn't matter the sheer result of what you do. What matters is what you were capable of doing. If you're showing that you are living up to 100% of your capabilities, and that what the challenges that you face, you're just overcoming them or you're working around them, I think Bush School rewards that. I had one of my professors, my laptop decided it's time to go last week with a 6-page paper on it that had taken me 2 weeks to write and was completely deleted. I emailed the professor, Matt Gill, and he tells me to work the problem as it's due in the next 24 hours. So I rewrite the paper. I use my fiance's laptop to do that. That's one of those things where you got to be willing to just kind of throw everything at the wall, including yourself. But yeah, orgs were cool. Speech and debate, whoop.
I think the only thing I would add to that is something that I was able to do that I feel like really helped me is tie the Bush School to what you want to do. You know, if you can demonstrate like, this is what I want to do with my life, I want to serve, whatever, then say, you know, talk about how the Bush School is going to help you get there, how it's a stepping stone for you.
And I'll take it a step further, because when you're reading a lot of these personal statements, it's also that confidence that this is what I want to do, and I'm prepared to do these things to get there. And that includes if you've been able to do an internship. That's why sometimes the 3+2 students, I don't want you guys rushing so fast that you miss out on some of that undergrad experience. It works for some people, but there's also equally another side of this of people who don't get in, and I don't want them devastated that I didn't get in. Oh my gosh, my dreams and hopes are dashed. You just apply again the next year. You still have something to contribute and you've got another year of experience under your belt. We can't admit everyone who applies. It's fortunate when it happens, but we're going to look for the best of the best. And that means you beating out other 5-year students. So you got to be the one who's done that relevant work, relevant internship, involved on your campus, solid recs. All of those things, piece by piece, matter. And Will, I'll say that probably part of that is the confidence that you have. Sometimes it comes across arrogant, that's okay. Faculty want people who are confident. They don't want the wishy-washy. I don't really know what I want to do. No, this is what I think I want to do right here. I'm going for it. It may change, but you've got to have some self-confidence or you're going to struggle.
Real quick.
I have another, oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry, I've been talking a lot.
No, you're totally fine. But I was going to ask you, speaking of admissions, you went over the MIA numbers, you know, like there were 16 applicants, you only accepted 2. Do you have any of those same numbers for the MPSA program?
I want to see it was close to the same. They usually have between 15 and 20 apps. And they, again, this year was about 10 to 12. Well, I think it was 12 to 14 students came in from that this year. And,
Okay,
and that's about average, right? 10-ish.
Solid, thank you. And that's from every every department combined?
Correct. Again, you'd think, you know, you'd get 10 or so from each department. Poli-sci and international studies are the 2 big ones. They give us the most, and then we'll get maybe 1 or 2 from sociology, 1 or 2 from another. Same thing with econ. They just don't come in the big numbers like the other department, which is why we have them volunteering today. Poli-sci and international studies are our 2 big groups.
Solid, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so one more question here is that with faculty interviews, if you know what faculty you're interviewing, you read up. Oh, okay, you're answering this. Definitely, right? I'm assigning those interviews. You need to know who you're interviewing with and be prepared. Particularly on the international studies side, yeah, that kind of matters. Because some of them will revert into a language. If you say you're in Middle East and they want to test your Arabic, they may speak to you in Arabic. That's their prerogative. They have a set of questions they're all going to cover. And then after that, they can kind of wing it. Okay, Klein, you had a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It was like sorta answered, and I just wanted to ask, how can I heard the interview is such a huge part of the process of getting accepted. I know just how to really stand out during an interview.
Be authentic, be yourself. And like Anna said, show that the Bush School isn't just like oh, I don't know what I want to do after I graduate, so I thought I'd apply. Show that it's no, I want to do this and I want to get here with this. And this is how I think the Bush School is going to better develop me as a student and as a working professional. And then like Will said, he put in the chat, if you're meeting with an interviewer, know who they are before you go in. All of the faculty, everything is online. You can look them up. I would always have questions prepared. Don't go into it with like oh, I don't really have anything. Like they want someone who is inquisitive, who can continue a conversation and facilitate that. We have people in like guest speakers. We just have people who come all the time to the Bush School to do things. They want students who can show that they can properly communicate with people, regardless of who they are. And so I would definitely say that those are some of, I think, like the best things. Like show that you're passionate about it. Our students at the school are very passionate about what they do and about service, and they want to go places, and they're going to go places. So show that you're willing and you're excited about that.
All right, I'm going to give one last aspect. If you guys could give one piece of advice to any of these 3+2 students, what would be that one piece of advice, whether it be in the admissions process or just even prepping for undergraduate, getting ready for grad school? Addison, you want to start? We'll just go down the row like we did introductions.
I would say mine's not like tailored specifically, but I would say don't count yourselves out. I'm sure that this is like a lot of information right now. It's pretty intimidating hearing those numbers that Catherine gave and listening to all of us talk about the course load. It's difficult, it's challenging, but it's not undoable. So don't count yourself out. I didn't have any previous internship experience before I came in. I applied as a sophomore. I in no way thought that I could get in. Honestly, I was like, I just have class, that's it. It's kind of all my experience. Don't count yourself out. I had an amazing internship this summer. I have made it to my second year. Life is going well. So don't count yourself out. If you're passionate about it and you care about it, apply, do all the things. You're the only one who can really count yourself out at the end of the day.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything Addison said. Don't count yourself out. I had not had any internship experience or anything like that when I was applying. So don't feel like if you haven't had a million jobs and all of this, like you won't get in, it'll be fine. I would say once you get here, be involved in non-academic things. I think that helped me so much. You know, I did intramurals my first year as a great way to meet second years and stuff like that. Get involved in organizations. I continued to be involved in my undergraduate organizations, and I think that really helped me to like stay tied to, you know, what was my reality before grad school. But good luck to you all. And then Will.
Me? Okay. So this sounds, I'm sure this has been beat into you at this point. Work it out with the counselors. At the end of the day, I've had a lot of friends who got screwed over because they just couldn't figure out how to handle the right classes. And that was on them. That wasn't on anyone else. Don't be one of those people. Make a plan, follow the plan. Along with that, whenever you set your mind on something, don't do it halfway. For me, my way of not doing it halfway was every single lecture the Bush School offered from my freshman year to when I applied, I went to. I now have like a picture with Leon Panetta and a signed book from Madeleine Albright because I went to every single opportunity. And in my faculty interview, I was able to say, you wrote about this when you were my age. I just heard this person talk about it at the Bush School. What do you think the relation is? And that just gave my interviewer a lot to talk about. And I love the faculty here. I really, really do, but they also love talking. That's not harm on them, but they do. So just keep that in mind.
I would say on a more like literal aspect, keep in touch, always talk to your undergrad counselor because they control a lot. And so you may think like you're at the grad school, but there's still a bunch of undergrad stuff you need to take care of. So make sure you finish that seminar because sometimes you'll end up taking that seminar while you're taking grad classes and it's not the most fun. But on another side, if there's anything like holding you back, like I know I thought there was like a stereotypical like Bush School student and I was kind of scared to apply, but like once I got here, it was way more diverse than I had ever imagined. And I feel very comfortable in all my classes. So don't be scared of applying.
Okay, that was great. Thank you guys all so much for joining us. And if I did not send you the agenda because you were one of the late registrants today, just email me and I'll be happy to send that to you because the agenda has the contact information in the emails and the names of our guests today, including Matt Upton and our students. So that if you do want to do follow-up specifically with Will or Addison, whomever, you've got access to them. So I can provide that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I will have this posted to the website soon and email it out. It'll take about a week or two, probably 2 weeks in minimum for it to be transcribed by my GA. And then we'll get that up and sent out to you guys. But we're going to end it now. And you guys reach out should you need us. My email is on everything. It's bushschooladmissions@tamu.edu. So get a hold of me if you need me. Thank you guys so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. We appreciate you.
Thank
Thank you all.
Thank you all
Thank you
so much.
guys.
Have a good night.
Waiting for the day you decide I'm more trouble than I'm worth.